Okay, can you hear me? Yeah, good. Well, thanks, Tony, for inviting me. I hope everyone gets some insight or inspiration from this talk. Before I get into the work, I've got a question for you. What did you learn from your last project? Have a think about that. Here's a quote from Brian Tracy, who's a motivational speaker and an author. Those people who develop the ability to continuously acquire new and better forms of knowledge that can apply to their work and to their lives will be the movers and shakers in our society for the indefinite future. So we'll come back to this later. Let's have a look at the show reel. Okay, so who are we? Versio, we started in 2010. We're basically with two people. We use good freelancers as well, and occasionally we have paid interns as well. So we're very small, but we grow bigger depending on what projects come in. And we work on a mix of graphic design, motion design, animation projects. This could include company identity or branding, a TV ad, or 3D visualizations. You saw quite a few there in the show reel. And generally speaking, all our projects are design-led. So they have a kind of a creative problem that needs solving. And but most of our clients are in the broadcast sector, as was mentioned in the intro. And my history personally, I did a design degree, so graphic design, which was mainly print and web, back in '99, quite a long time ago. And when I left uni, I started a business. I started a design business, and that lasted less than a year because I didn't have a clue what I was doing, and I was very naive. And so that failed after a year, and I went freelancing. I did that for a few years, then went and did a master's in screen design for film and television. I did a lot of sort of Flash website stuff, and that really got me into motion graphics. I got really interested in that, and so that's when I went on and did a master's. And that's where I met my wife, who I wasn't married to at the time, obviously. We were on the same course, and after doing that, I became a senior designer at a branding agency for a couple of years, doing a lot of corporate work, companies like Vodafone and Canon. And then I went freelance again, a few years as a motion designer, working at different sort of places, and then started Versus in 2010 with my wife, which was interesting. So that's kind of a brief background into us. So let's have a look at some projects. We've been going a couple of years, and we've done a lot of kids TV. Nickelodeon basically have been kind of our bread and butter client really since we started. So we did a lot of kids TV animation stuff for the first couple of years. And we wanted to try and broaden our show reel a bit and get into doing some other work. So we wanted to take on a more experimental project, and a housemate of a friend, talk about friends of friends, had a band, and they were launching their first album. And they approached us, and well, we kind of talked to each other, and they gave us their songs, and we listened to one, their main one, and we really liked it, and so we kind of got to talking, and we decided to collaborate on a music video. So the song we chose basically talked about, it's called Unpolished Pearl, and it talked about the lead singer's struggle with the monsters in her head, longing for good fortune and courage to succeed. So the story that we kind of came up with represented that. And the mood board here, this was our initial mood board, it showed some of our sort of thoughts and ideas around that. So it's sort of Victoriana, line illustration, tarot, and these found their way into the piece. This is part of the storyboard, so bringing some of that illustration in and telling some of the parts of the story. And we wanted it to be like a continuous shot throughout the video. Here's a style frame that we presented. They were really happy with. So it's a visually dark kind of collage feel. We wanted to mix live action and 2D and 3D animation. And then wardrobe, we did like a sort of Amish look. Oh, what's going on? There we go. And we had I don't know if you can see those. So we had a stylist came on board as well and helped us out. And so she kind of came up with some costumes. And the band had like no budget, so we had like the smallest studio ever to sort of film in, and like a portable green screen. It was an absolute nightmare to light. And I'll show you a bit of the sort of post-production stuff as well before we show the video. So 3D parts were done in Lightwave, all kind of rendered in you'll see in sort of a line style, and all composited in After Effects. Ended up being massive compositions, of sort of like a couple of hundred layers normally. And so let's see the video.
between the silt and the shit. I'm just about breathing, although I'm still heaving. And I scream louder than ever before, stuck in some kind of sleep paralysis.
Okay, so that took us about maybe 8 months of kind of evenings and weekends getting it done. This was the logo that we created for the band as well. So what lessons did we learn from that? So that was a great experience organising and directing a shoot. So I think our involvements in shoots up to that point have been very much just maybe sort of supervising a bit for VFX or helping out, thinking like how if we're going to do some animation. So that was great, doing the whole thing. What else did we learn? DSLR compression is terrible for green screen. Yeah, that was a nightmare. So always shoot raw. I don't know if that's still valid today, but it was certainly then. Don't have overly high expectations that a personal project will lead to better or more work. Just do it for the satisfaction. So we really we kind of had unrealistic expectations that that would get us lots of extra work in sort of different fields, but actually that didn't really happen. So really, if you're going to do an experimental project or ones that we've done since, we've done it really for ourselves rather than and for our own satisfaction, rather than sort of hoping that it will maybe lead to something else. Next project, Mexfest. So 2013, we did got contacted by some guys. It was like a friend of a friend who worked at the Mexican embassy. They were going to do a festival bringing Mexican culture to London, in art, architecture, film, music, and then kind of the last minute food as well. And it was going to be held at multiple venues, and they wanted an online teaser to sort of to spearhead a marketing campaign, and a cinema trailer to sit in the event before the events. And they already had an identity, so they kind of already had this kind of logo and these illustrations for the 4 strands. Let's go back. So we basically came up with an idea. We wanted to tie it in with this identity, and we basically developed an idea of Mexico taking over London. These kind of and created these characters based on these skulls, or from these skulls, and they each they kind of became almost like alien tourists exploring London in their own kind of peculiar ways. So we literally just wrote a treatment and sent 2 style frames to the client. It wasn't a massive budget on the project, but they loved the idea and they just let us run with it. So it was possibly the smoothest process ever in a project. That just never happens normally. So for the teaser, it was a much quicker deadline, so we just used royalty-free footage for the filming in London, and then for the trailer we actually hired a camera, and because it was going to be broadcast 2K, so we hired a camera and went around and shot everything. And we filmed it over, we got really lucky with the weather, but we basically filmed it over a weekend. You can, I don't know if you've ever hired stuff before, but if you hire, often with film hire companies, if you hire on a Friday, they want it back on the Monday, so you kind of get the weekend free. So that can be a tip if you need to shoot more stuff, you can actually stretch it out over a weekend. So characters were all sort of obviously modelled, rigged in Lightwave. Shots were tracked in Synthesize. Everything brought into After Effects for compositing. So here's kind of a typical kind of composite, just stuff rotoed out. And let's have a quick look at the teaser and the trailer. So that was the teaser. And this was the trailer for the cinema. Okay, so lessons. What did we learn from this one? Oh yeah, I already said about the camera. Don't let practical limitations stifle an idea in the early stages. We kind of that initial idea of having these creatures moving around London with the sort of budget we had, we could have easily thought, well, no, that's not really going to work. We need to do something much simpler because we only kind of had 2 weeks really to make it, and there's only 2 of us working on it. So that could have easily stifled that idea, but we kind of ran with it, and sometimes you can, you cannot do the impossible. That sounds really cheesy, but you can do more than you think. Where there's a will, there's a way. So next one. Sorry if I'm rattling through this quite quickly. I've just got 4 projects. So big questions, interstitials. So Tiny Pop is a TV channel. They run it against sort of the same age group as CBeebies and Nick Jr., so kind of preschool kids audience. They're actually now owned by Sony, and they needed a set of interstitials, which is an interstitial is like a short program that runs between programs, kind of almost in the ad breaks. And so they gave us a call, and they said, oh, we've got this set of interstitials. And we'd done a few projects with them before, and at the time, we had like a week left on a project, and then we had like nothing lined up. So we literally had no work, no projects in the pipeline. And so they call and they say, oh, we got this project. It's like 12 interstitials. We kind of got 7 weeks, and the budget was all right. And so it was just kind of this case of, oh yes, great, yes, we'll take it. Right, that'd be amazing, thank you. Put the phone down. Send us the brief, thanks. Put the phone down. And then, obviously, they sent the stuff through, and then we kind of realised, well, hang on a minute, we've got to make 12 interstitials here in 7 weeks, which is giving a week for the sort of the concept and stuff. That gives us like 6 weeks to do 12, which is 2 a week. So that's 1 every 2.5 days, which is just, that's a lot of work. So we kind of really bit off a lot there, but we cracked on with it. Obviously, they had scripts ready, so we sent 2 treatments, 2 visual treatments. So there's both very simple, because obviously it's for a very young audience. So this was the first one. This was the second one. They went with the first one, and that was the logo we did for the packaging for the stunt. So it was all about basically kids. It was like answers to kids' big questions. So like they're almost like visual explainers, really. Just very simple to help kids understand. And this was a typical storyboard. And we had 4 of us on it. So we had like an illustrator, and then 3 of us animating. Basically, one of us pretty much developing the storyboard and for the script and kind of getting sign off for the client with that. The other 2 working in After Effects and Lightwave to actually make the stuff. So here's a typical, so some of the creatures we did in 3D to give them sort of more dimension, and just either flat shaded or cell shaded and composited into the spots. So here's like a bee. So very simple rigs, but just let us animate in a nice way. So I'll just show you two of them because they're quite quick. See how they turned out. So bear in mind these took about 2.5 days, 3 days to make. So they're not amazing, but I think for the time that we had to make them, we were quite pleased with them.
Tiny Pop's big questions. Did you know that elephants' trunks have no bones and is mostly made up of muscle? But why do elephants have trunks? The answer is lots of reasons. It's like having a straw, hand, shower, nose and trumpet all rolled into one. Elephants can suck up water and spray it over themselves or into their mouth. They make noise from their trunk and they can even breathe through it too. It's also very handy for picking up or reaching things. And elephants can even use their trunk to grab things as tiny as a peanut. That's the little answer to Tiny Pop's big question. Tiny Pop's big questions. Did you know that the sun is a star? Yep, it's one of the brightest in the entire Milky Way galaxy, which has hundreds of billions of stars. That's a lot of stars. But do you know what it's made of? The sun is over 100 times bigger than the Earth and is mostly made of an element called hydrogen. It also has helium, which is what people use to fill up balloons so they float by themselves. The sun is very hot up close, but it warms the air just right so we can live on it and plants can grow. Cool! That's the little answer to Tiny Pop's big question.
Okay, so there's 2 of them there. So there were 12 of those. So yeah, you can imagine by the last few we were pretty burned out on big questions. So what lessons did we learn? Ask lots of questions before saying yes to a project, and be uber organised. You've got to be so organised. I mean, we're quite organised anyway, but really get your process nailed. So then last project, Crystal Maze sponsorship bumpers. So BT, we've done quite a few projects for BT in the past. They were sponsoring a special charity episode, the Crystal Maze, which for the older members of the audience, you will probably remember from the 90s. It was basically a game show that you had contestants running around trying to win crystals. They sort of did little challenges to win crystals to get time in the Crystal Dome. So they could win, they could basically collect lots of tickets, and I don't even know what they won. I think they won a prize. And I don't think they ever actually did it. I don't think anyone ever won it. So Channel 4 brought back to life the show for a special charity event, and BT was sponsoring it, so they wanted to do a set of sponsorship bumpers to bookend the ad breaks. So they already had an idea. They kind of wanted to have the logo in an environment. That was kind of one of the show had 4 different zones. So there were 4 different environments. There was like a futuristic, a jungle, an industrial, and a medieval. And so they basically wanted to have a logo in each of these zones. So they kind of had a basic idea there already. And these are some photos from the show sets. And so this was sort of a reference mood board for the sort of treatment that we wanted to do. We were thinking of kind of having some kind of machine type thing for each of the zones that basically gave out the crystals. So you had some little journey of the crystal sort of appearing, because they're very short, sort of 5, 10, 15-second spots. But they kind of liked that idea, but they wanted something bigger. They wanted something more epic. It's like make the logo bigger. They said we're an epic brand, so make it epic. So it's like okay. So we kind of kept that idea, but making it epic. And so really, this was kind of it's almost like a set building exercise in a way. So it was just constructing like a really nice set and adapting the BT logo to fit within that. So here's kind of some screenshots of some of the build. So this is the Aztec one. So you see like lots of instancing for all the forest and foliage and everything. And here's a medieval one. And we'd used Octane on our previous project for BT Sports, like the first project we'd used it on. And so we kind of really went into it on this one because it's just great. And so here's some early development shots, some sort of texture development, and then these are the final shots.
BT is proud to support the Crystal Maze for Stand Up to Cancer. BT is proud to support the Crystal Maze for Stand Up to Cancer. BT is proud to support the Crystal Maze for Stand Up to Cancer. BT is proud to support the Crystal Maze for Stand Up to Cancer.
Yeah, so that was quite a cool project. I mean, we only had 4 weeks. We only had 4 weeks on it, so and it's just 2 of us on it. So it was quite a quick turnaround. But yeah, Octane's awesome. I love it. And so coming then back around to the learning, just want to talk about this idea really of lifelong learning, and it's one of my biggest motivators as a designer. I want to learn something new every day, and I think, you know, as students, not just the students here, but definitely, like, you know, you don't think of like finishing uni as like the end of your learning. Really, it's like just the start. If you can embrace continuous learning, it will improve your work. And there's a few ways you can help doing that. Value failure. You know, you learn far much more, I think, from things that don't go well, from things that you screw up, than things that go nice and smoothly. Try and focus on the process, not the outcome. It's not, you know, it's great having a nice shiny piece at the end, but if you focus on what you learn, actually making that is far more valuable often than what you kind of get out at the end. And try and make time for reflection. You know, think back about, okay, well, what did go right on that project? What did go wrong? How could I have done that better? What did I learn? Because often it's very easy to just be thinking of the future and the next thing, and not always actually on what you've just done and how you can learn from that. So and as you go through your kind of career, especially as you get older and you've been doing this a lot longer, it helps to keep a positive attitude with bad projects, because you will get bad projects, and by focusing on what you learn from them, it can really help you avoid burnout, because you can, with lots of bad projects, you can get really burnt out as a designer or an animator, and but if you can focus on what you're learning from them, that can really sort of help ease that. So, one last quote: "Nothing is a waste of time if you use the experience wisely." That's from Rodin. Thank you. That's 31 minutes. I felt like I was really rushing through that. But any questions?
Yeah, the big question on Art Guild animators you.
Yes.
Do you have to do the sound for them as well?
No.
They provided the sound.
No. Yeah. They did the audio afterwards. They provided a guide VO, which we could then sort of time the beats to, as it were, and then they got the voiceover and audio done afterwards. Yeah, generally speaking, pretty much all broadcast clients will get the audio done separately at an audio post house. From BT? No, they don't. Well, they say they don't. That was in the region of 20K for all four. Yeah, 4 weeks. Yeah, no, it's not a massive budget. They don't have yeah. But it's for charity, right? That's the argument they use. Nickelodeon, which the tiny pop ones. They were a bit more than that, but obviously there was like 12 to make. So when you break it down to each one, it's yeah. Sure. Yeah, it basically it paid for four people to work on it, but we didn't make a lot of profit on it, if you know what I mean. But yeah, it was kind of a nice project. If we'd had longer, that's always the argument, isn't it? If you have longer, it wouldn't have been quite so stressful. I mean, there were some late nights there, but yeah, they were quite nice. They were quite nice to work on. They're quite fun. A lot of the kids' stuff is very fun to work on.
I was just going to kind of add to that. How do you approach pricing with clients? Kind of like, what is your philosophy? Do you work to a day rate, or do you try and put more emphasis on value?
That's a good question.
No one has the answer.
No one. Who has the answer? I think. Yeah. That's all right. Yeah. She deals with that. I just deal with the creative. Yeah. Now, often they come to us with a budget, and they say, "Look, we've got this budget. You know, can you do it? Are you interested?" And often we'll say, "Yes, that's fine." Very occasionally, we'll say, "Oh no, look, I'm sorry, but there's no way we can do it for that."
Situations normally the other way around, where they won't disclose their budget, even though they normally have a finite budget or at least a range.
Yeah.
So they kind of drag you around the houses trying to come up with a proposal. So it's interesting. Like from Brooks, we don't really do much for Brooks, so
Sure.
it's that transparency. We always try and get to the number. Like, well, what is your budget? And we're not going to rip you off just because we know what it is. We'll give you good value.
Yes, it's just it's very hard to define your offering without knowing what the budget is. Yeah, so it's easier from that perspective because we can then sort of tailor and I guess the issue with broadcast is that the budgets are really going down because marketing spend advertising spend is going down in that industry. It's all being spread online to Google and Facebook and whatever. So they're getting a lot less revenue from advertising. So the budgets in broadcast are getting smaller. But the expectations are getting higher. I guess the way, I mean, we kind of hedge against that by, it depends on the client, actually. It depends on the client relationship, because a lot of our clients we've been working with for a long time, so we know them very well, so we have good relationships with them, so they don't take the piss too much. But particularly with new clients, we'll put a contingency in. And the other thing as well with a lot of TV jobs, the timelines are so short that actually they don't have a lot of time to screw around, because if you've got 2 weeks to do a project, or a week to do a project, or 3 weeks to do a project, they can't have endless amounts of changes because they know it has to go on air on that date. So it can't really slip. They can't really say, oh, well, you know what, it doesn't matter if it's 2 weeks later, because actually it's scheduled to go on air. So they don't have that sort of leeway that maybe other industries have, or at least for a lot of the projects we work on.